The transport ship descended through Velar Prime's atmosphere, and Dr. Marcus Chen pressed his face against the viewing port. Crystal towers stretched toward the purple sky, each one taller than Earth's highest mountain. Ships from 100 worlds filled the air like metal birds. Marcus had studied xenology for 15 years, but seeing the galactic capital in person made his breath catch. "We're almost there, Dr. Chen," the pilot said. She was human too. One of only 5 Earth representatives at the summit. Marcus straightened his uniform and checked his presentation files one more time. Earth had waited 30 years for this invitation. Today, humanity would finally have a voice among the stars. The summit hall was enormous. Delegates from across the galaxy filled the curved rows of seats. Some had scales, others had fur or skin that glowed with inner light. Marcus recognized species from his textbooks, but many were completely new to him. He felt very small and very alone. At the center of the hall stood 5 thrones, each carved from a different material. These seats belonged to the princesses, the young heirs of the galaxy's most powerful empires. Marcus had memorized everything he could about them. Princess Xyrith entered first. She was tall and muscular, with deep red skin and white markings across her face. Her people, the Carvons, were famous warriors. They controlled 300 star systems through military strength. Xyrith walked like a soldier, her hand resting on the ceremonial blade at her hip. Princess Nylora came next. She seemed to float more than walk, her pale blue form shifting like smoke. The Ethereals were an ancient race with mysterious powers. Some said they could see the future. Nylora's silver eyes swept across the hall, pausing briefly on Marcus before moving on. Princess Tessic clicked and buzzed as she approached her throne. She looked like a large insect, with multiple arms and compound eyes that reflected the light. Her people, the Hive Collective, were brilliant merchants who controlled the galaxy's trade routes. Millions of her species worked together like one giant mind. Princess Valdris arrived in a floating chair surrounded by holographic displays. She had metallic implants covering half her body, and her eyes glowed with digital information. The Nexari had turned themselves into living machines. Their technology was the most advanced in known space. Finally, Princess Shiva materialized on her throne. Her crystalline body caught the light and scattered it in rainbow patterns. The Crystal Dominion rarely left their homeworlds, keeping their secrets close. That Shiva attended at all was considered a great honor. The Summit Master, an elderly Carvon with gray skin, raised his hand. "We begin with new petitions. Earth has requested full membership status." A wave of whispers filled the hall. Marcus heard several species laughing. He stood anyway, holding his datapad with steady hands. "Honored princesses, esteemed delegates," Marcus began. "Earth asks to join the Galactic Council. We offer friendship, trade, and our unique perspective." "Unique perspective?" Xyrith leaned forward, her voice sharp. "What makes your species special, human? You have one world. One. My empire has 300. Marcus kept his voice calm. "We offer adaptability. Humanity has survived ice ages, wars, and near extinction. We learn quickly and never give up." Tessic's buzzing laughter filled the hall. "You speak of surviving on one planet. My collective manages logistics for 10,000 worlds simultaneously. What can you possibly teach us?" "We don't claim to teach you," Marcus replied. "We ask to learn from you and share what we've discovered in return." Valdris touched her holographic displays. "I've reviewed your technology. You barely have faster than light travel. Your weapons are primitive. Your computing power is laughable. Why should we waste time with a species that is centuries behind us?" The other delegates joined in the laughter now. Marcus felt heat rise in his face, but he continued. "We may be behind in technology, but we've accomplished much with limited resources. Human creativity." "Creativity?" Xyrith stood up, her voice booming. "We don't need artists. We need warriors, scientists, and leaders. Earth has nothing we want. You would make adequate servants at best, but certainly not equals. The hall erupted in agreement. Species Marcus didn't recognize called out their own jokes. One delegate suggested Earth should focus on providing entertainment for real civilizations. Another said humans might be useful for simple labor tasks. Marcus finished his presentation despite the mockery. He showed Earth's achievements, proposed trade agreements, and outlined mutual defense benefits. Nobody listened. When he sat down, the summit master didn't even call for a vote. Earth's petition is denied, the master announced. Perhaps in another century, when you've proven yourselves more capable. As the delegates filed out for the evening meal, Marcus remained in his seat. 30 years of work, dismissed in 30 minutes. He gathered his materials slowly, refusing to show his disappointment. Human. The voice was soft, like wind through leaves. Marcus turned to find Princess Nylora floating beside him. Her silver eyes studied his face with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Yes, Your Highness, you maintain dignity despite disrespect. That speaks well of your character. Her form rippled. I saw something during your presentation. A vision, though incomplete. Your species may be more important than my peers realize. Before Marcus could respond, Nylora drifted away, leaving him confused. Marcus returned to Earth's small diplomatic quarters. He would write his report, recommend Earth continue building its capabilities, and suggest they try again in the future. Humanity wouldn't quit, even if the galaxy thought them worthless. He was preparing for sleep when the alarms began. Red lights flashed throughout the station. Marcus rushed to his communication console and connected to the emergency broadcast. A mechanical voice filled every speaker on Velar Prime. Attention all worlds. The Voidborn have awakened. Long-range sensors detect their armada at Sector 779. All species are advised to begin evacuation protocols. The ancient enemy has returned. Marcus pulled up the star charts. Sector 779 was at the galaxy's edge. But the Voidborn's projected path would take them through all 5 princess empires within months. The species who had laughed at Earth hours ago now faced extinction. And somehow, Marcus knew everything was about to change. The summit hall looked different now. Yesterday it had been filled with laughter and pride. Today, fear hung in the air like smoke. Delegates crowded around holographic displays showing the Voidborn armada advancing through space. The ancient machines consumed everything in their path. Marcus stood in the observation gallery, watching the chaos below. Princess Xyrith was arguing with her military advisors. Princess Valdris frantically typed on multiple holographic keyboards at once. Princess Tessic buzzed urgently into communication devices. Even Princess Shiva, usually so calm, had her crystalline form flickering with agitation. They've never moved this fast before, an elderly delegate said beside Marcus. The creature had 4 eyes and spoke through a translation device. The Voidborn always feed and then sleep. Always. For 10,000 years, this pattern has held. What's different this time? Marcus asked. Everything. The delegate's eyes dimmed with sadness. They're not stopping. They consume a world, build more ships, and immediately move to the next target. They're growing stronger. On the main display, a Carvon battle fleet engaged the Voidborn. Marcus watched as 50 massive warships fired their weapons. The explosions lit up space like new stars. For a moment, it seemed the Carvons were winning. Then the Voidborn adapted. Their hulls shifted, reflecting the weapons back at the Carvon ships. Within minutes, the proud fleet was scattered debris. Xyrith roared in fury, slamming her fist on her throne's armrest. The metal cracked under the impact. Over the next 3 days, Marcus watched the galaxy's greatest powers fail repeatedly. The Nexari sent ships controlled by advanced artificial intelligence. The Voidborn hacked the systems and turned the ships against their creators. The Hive Collective tried overwhelming the machines with sheer numbers. The Voidborn disrupted their coordination signals, causing massive collisions and confusion. The Ethereals used their mysterious powers to predict Voidborn movements. But the machines had no pattern to predict. They acted with cold, random efficiency. Even Princess Shiva's people, hiding in their crystal fortresses, found their defenses being systematically dismantled. Earth's small delegation could only watch. Marcus sent daily reports home, recommending emergency preparations. If the 5 great empires couldn't stop the Voidborn, Earth had no chance. But his messages all said the same thing at the end. Humanity will prepare to fight anyway. On the 4th night, Marcus was studying the battle recordings in his quarters when his door chimed. He opened it to find Princess Nylora floating in the hallway. Her smoky form pulsed with urgency. "Dr. Chen, I must speak with you privately." Marcus stepped aside, and Nylora entered. She didn't sit, simply hovered near the center of the small room. "My visions have intensified," she said without preamble. "I see you. Human. I see you standing among the Voidborn. Unafraid. I see my sisters and I bowing to Earth. I see survival. But the path remains hidden." Quote, "I'm signed at Fivel." Quote, Marcus felt his heart race. "Your Highness, I'm just a diplomat. Earth has no fleet, no weapons that could help against those machines. Yet you appear in every vision of victory." Nylora's silver eyes fixed on him. "I've told the others. They don't believe me. Zyreth says I'm desperate. Valdris claims my abilities are malfunctioning. But I know what I see. What do you want from me? Come to our war council tomorrow. Observe. If you see something we miss, speak. My people don't believe in coincidence. You're here for a reason." After Nylora left, Marcus couldn't sleep. He spent the night reviewing everything he knew about the Voidborn. Ancient machine intelligence. Appeared every 1,000 years. Consumed technology and resources. Always left before complete destruction. Except this time, the War Council met in a secure chamber deep within the station. The 5 princesses sat around a circular table with their top military commanders. Marcus stood against the wall, present but not participating. Admiral Krex, a scarred Karvan warrior, presented his battle plan. "We hit them with everything at once. Overwhelming force. We cannot let them adapt if we destroy them instantly." "Why?" Zyreth nodded approval, but Valdris shook her head. "We tried that at the Kepler cluster. They survived the initial assault and adapted within seconds. We lost 200 ships. Then we use unconventional weapons," suggested one of Tessik's collective members. "Biological agents, dimensional disruptors, reality anchors. The Voidborn are machines," Shiva's crystalline voice rang out. "They don't breathe. Don't exist in normal space-time. Such weapons are useless." The debate continued for hours. Every strategy had already been tried and failed. Marcus watched and listened, his mind working through the problem. Finally, during a brief pause, he spoke. "Excuse me." Every head turned toward him. Zyreth's expression darkened. "The human speaks? What could you possibly offer?" Marcus stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. "I've been watching your battle recordings. The Voidborn adapt to every weapon, every tactic. They counter your strategies perfectly." "Yes, we know this," Valdris said impatiently. "That's the problem we're trying to solve." "But why do they counter you so perfectly?" Marcus asked. "I think it's because you all fight the same way. Honor-bound tactics. Direct confrontation. Predictable formations. The Voidborn have had thousands of years to learn how you think." Zyreth stood up, towering over Marcus. "You dare insult our military traditions? These tactics have won 1,000 wars. Against other species who also use honor-bound tactics," Marcus replied calmly. "The Voidborn don't care about honor. They care about efficiency." "What are you suggesting?" Nylora asked, her voice cutting through the tension. Marcus took a breath. "On Earth, we have a saying. When fighting a stronger enemy, you don't fight their war. You make them fight yours. Use deception, traps, hit-and-run tactics. Attack their weaknesses, not their strengths. Fight dirty." The room erupted in outrage. Multiple commanders shouted at once. Zyreth called it cowardice, Valdris said such methods were beneath civilized species. Tessic buzzed that it violated every military code in the galaxy. Only Nylora remained silent, watching Marcus with her silver eyes. "These are the tactics of prey animals," Admiral Krex growled. "We are predators. Then maybe it's time to learn from prey," Marcus said. "Because right now, the Voidborn are hunting all of you." Xyrath moved toward Marcus, her hand on her blade. "Perhaps we should send you back to your primitive world before you embarrass yourself further." "Wait." Nylora's voice froze everyone in place. "Give him a chance. One operation. If he fails, we continue our way. If he succeeds..." She paused. "Then perhaps we've been too proud to see the truth." The princesses looked at each other. Another fleet had fallen that morning. Entire colonies were being evacuated. They were losing. And they knew it. Finally, Xyrath spoke through gritted teeth. "One operation. You'll have a small task force, volunteers only. Show us these human tactics. But when you fail, stay out of our way." Marcus nodded. "I'll need representatives from each empire. And access to your battle recordings and ship specifications." "You'll have them," Nylora said. As the council dismissed, Marcus felt the weight of what he'd just agreed to. He had to succeed, not just for Earth, but for the entire galaxy. The princesses who had mocked him days ago were now giving him a chance to prove humanity's worth. He just hoped he was right. Marcus stood in the hangar bay, watching his new team assemble. 20 volunteers from 5 different empires. Each one looking at him with doubt. 3 Carvan warriors who considered retreat shameful. 4 Nexari pilots whose ships were extensions of their own bodies. 5 Hive Collective members who had never operated independently. 4 Ethereals, who relied on psychic coordination. 4 Crystal Dominion soldiers who preferred defensive positions. And 1 human who had to make them work together. "I know what you're thinking," Marcus said, his voice echoing in the vast hangar. "You're wondering why you volunteered to follow a human. A species with no fleet. No victories. No reputation." A Carvan warrior, Lieutenant Dax, crossed his arms. "Say what you need to say, human. We don't have time for speeches." Marcus nodded. "Fair enough. Here's the truth. Every one of you has been trained to fight with honor. To face your enemy directly. To win through superior strength. Those are good qualities. They've won you countless battles." "But," prompted Lyra, one of the Nexari pilots, "but the Voidborn don't care about your honor. They're machines. They calculate, adapt, and optimize. Every time you fight them the same way, you're letting them study you. You're teaching them how to kill you more efficiently." One of the Ethereals, named Soren, spoke softly. "Humanity has survived on one planet for thousands of years by fighting enemies we couldn't defeat directly. Predators stronger than us, diseases we couldn't cure, other humans with better weapons. We survived by being unpredictable, by using our environment, by making our weaknesses look like strengths." Marcus activated a holographic display showing an asteroid field designated as Zone Theta. 3 hours from now, a small Voidborn fleet will pass through this region. They're scouting ahead of the main armada. Intelligence says 15 ships. 15 ships? Dax laughed. "We have 20 crew members and 5 light fighters. This is suicide." "It would be, if we fought them directly," Marcus agreed. "But we're not going to fight them. We're going to trick them." Over the next hour, Marcus explained his plan. The team would scatter debris from destroyed ships throughout the asteroid field. The Voidborn always stopped to analyze and assimilate useful technology. While the machines were distracted, the team would remotely trigger power core overloads in sequence, creating a chain reaction. "This is a trap for scavengers," one of the Hive members buzzed disapprovingly. "Not a military engagement." "Exactly," Marcus said. "The Voidborn think they're the hunters. We're going to remind them what it feels like to be prey." The operation began badly. The Crystal Dominion soldiers refused to hide behind asteroids, calling it cowardly. Marcus had to spend precious minutes explaining that positioning wasn't about courage, it was about survival. The Carvans wanted to charge the moment they saw the enemy. The Nexari kept suggesting technological solutions that were too complex. But slowly, reluctantly, They followed his instructions. When the Voidborn arrived, Marcus felt sweat running down his back. 15 massive ships, their dark hulls absorbing light. They moved through space with mechanical precision, scanning everything. "Hold position," Marcus whispered into the comm. "Let them take the bait." The Voidborn detected the debris field. Their ships slowed, extending collection arms to gather the scattered technology. They moved deeper into the asteroid field. Exactly as Marcus had predicted. "Now," Marcus commanded. Lyra triggered the first power core. It exploded with brilliant light, sending a shockwave through space. The Voidborn ships turned toward the explosion, analyzing it. Then the second core detonated, then the third. The Voidborn tried to retreat, but Marcus had positioned the cores in a specific pattern. Each explosion pushed them toward the next trap. The chain reaction built, energy cascading through the asteroid field. The Voidborn ships' adaptive shields worked perfectly against weapons, but they couldn't adapt fast enough to pure explosive force from every direction at once. When the light faded, all 15 Voidborn ships were destroyed. The comm channel erupted with cheers. Dax was laughing. The Hive members buzzed excitedly. Even the stoic Crystal soldiers showed approval. "First significant victory in 2 weeks," Lyra reported. "0 friendly casualties." Lyra, River. Marcus allowed himself a small smile. "Let's go home." News of the victory spread quickly. When Marcus's team returned to Velar Prime, they found the 5 princesses waiting in the hangar. Xyrith studied the battle recording 3 times, her expression unreadable. Valdris analyzed the tactical data, her digital eyes flickering rapidly. "Unconventional," Xyrith finally said, "but effective." "The Voidborn lost 15 ships without understanding what killed them," Valdris added. "Their adaptation protocols never engaged because there were no weapons to adapt to." Tessic buzzed thoughtfully. "You used their own behavior against them. Their need to assimilate technology became a weakness. Human warfare is built on such principles," Marcus explained. "We call it asymmetric tactics. You use whatever advantages you have, even if they seem small. You avoid enemy strengths and exploit their assumptions." Over the following days, Marcus trained more volunteers. He taught them to think differently about combat. A Karvan warrior learned that retreating could be a weapon if it drew enemies into traps. A Nexari pilot discovered that turning off advanced systems made her ship invisible to Voidborn sensors. Hive members learned to operate independently, making them unpredictable. The small victories accumulated. A Voidborn supply line was disrupted using false sensor readings. A machine repair facility was destroyed by hiding explosives in the very wreckage the Voidborn were salvaging. An entire Voidborn formation was scattered when Marcus's team faked a massive fleet signature using drones and signal amplifiers. Marcus worked 18-hour days, barely sleeping. But during the quiet moments, he found himself talking with the princesses. They sought his advice not just on military matters, but on leadership and decision-making. Xyrith confided that her people expected her to win every battle through strength alone. "But strength without strategy is just wasted effort," she admitted after their 5th successful operation. Valdris, surrounded by her technology, confessed that she sometimes felt more machine than person. "You make decisions based on instinct and experience. I rely on calculations. But calculations couldn't predict your tactics." Tessic worried about her collective's dependence on group coordination. "What happens when we can't communicate? Your humans function independently. That's a strength I never valued before." Shiva, usually so isolated, admitted that her people's withdrawal from galactic affairs had made them rigid. "You adapt because you must. We forgot how to change." Nylora simply watched Marcus work, her visions growing clearer. "The future I see is taking shape," she told him one evening. "But the hardest part is still coming." 3 weeks after Marcus's first operation, Princess Valdris called an emergency council. She had discovered something in the Voidborn's movement patterns. "They're converging," she announced, her holographic displays showing star charts. The entire armada is heading toward one location. The Nexus Point, where all 5 Empire territories meet. Marcus studied the data. The Nexus Point was strategically vital but lightly defended. If the Voidborn took it, they could strike into the heart of all 5 empires simultaneously. How long until they arrive? Xyreth demanded. 6 days. The room fell silent. 6 days to prepare for the largest battle in galactic history. 6 days to stop an enemy that had never been truly defeated. Marcus looked at the 5 princesses. They were watching him, waiting for him to speak. These powerful rulers who had mocked Earth just weeks ago were now looking to a human for answers. We can stop them, Marcus said quietly. But it will require something that's never been done before. All 5 empires, working as one, following a single strategy, trusting each other completely, and trusting you, Nylora added. Xyreth stood up, her hand moving to her blade. Not in threat this time, but in salute. Then let's show the Voidborn what unity looks like. Marcus took a deep breath. Then here's what we're going to do. The council chamber had never been so crowded. Admirals, generals, and commanders from all 5 empires filled every available space. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing fleet positions, supply lines, and the approaching Voidborn armada. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Marcus stood at the center, a human surrounded by the galaxy's greatest military minds. Many of them looked at him with barely concealed contempt. A few showed curiosity. Most simply looked desperate. This is absurd, Admiral Krex announced, his Carvon voice booming through the chamber. We should be planning our defense, not listening to a human who has commanded exactly 7 minor operations. Those 7 operations achieved more than your last 100 battles, Xyreth shot back. Her defense of Marcus surprised everyone, including Marcus himself. The question is simple, Valdris said, her digital eyes scanning the room. Do we continue losing our way? Or do we try something new? The Voidborn arrive in 6 days. We don't have time for pride. The vote was called. The 5 princesses granted Marcus supreme command of the combined fleet. The decision was unprecedented in galactic history. Many commanders protested loudly. Some refused to participate, but enough agreed, and enough stayed. Marcus now commanded over 5,000 ships and millions of personnel. The weight of it pressed on his shoulders like a physical thing. I need to speak with each princess privately, Marcus told them after the council dismissed. What I'm planning will require sacrifices from all of you. He met with Xyreth first. Her personal quarters were filled with weapons and battle trophies. She poured him a drink from a bottle that looked ancient. My people respect strength, Xyreth said, sitting across from him. You've shown tactical intelligence, but they need to see you as a warrior. Some of my commanders are already talking about refusing your orders. I need your frontline forces to act as bait, Marcus told her directly. They'll face the heaviest fighting. Many won't survive. Xyreth's expression hardened. Then, slowly, she nodded. Carvon warriors don't fear death. They fear dying without purpose. Give them purpose, and they'll follow you into the void itself. I'll need you there with them, Marcus said, leading from the front. Where else would I be? Xyreth smiled grimly. Besides, my people need to see their princess bleed alongside them. Valdris met him in her laboratory, surrounded by screens and flowing data. Her fingers never stopped moving across holographic keyboards. I've analyzed your previous operations, she said, before Marcus could speak. You use technology in ways we never considered. Not because our technology is inferior, but because we're too focused on optimization. You embrace chaos. I need you to coordinate the technical aspects of the trap, Marcus explained. Thousands of generators working in perfect sync. One miscalculation, and the entire plan fails. The probability of success is only 37%, Valdris said, showing him her calculations. What's the probability if we fight them conventionally? Valdris was quiet for a moment. Less than 5%. Then I'll take 37. Valdris's mechanical components whirred softly. You know what I appreciate about you, Marcus? You don't pretend certainty when there is none. You acknowledge the odds and proceed anyway. That's not calculation. That's courage. Tessic received him in a chamber filled with her collective members. They moved in synchronized patterns, their buzzing creating complex harmonies. When Tessic spoke, dozens of voices spoke with her. The logistics of this operation are staggering, she said. Moving 5,000 ships into position without revealing our true strategy. Supplying them. Coordinating millions of personnel who have never worked together. Can your collective handle it? Marcus asked. Tessic's compound eyes reflected light in rainbow patterns. We've managed trade routes across 10,000 worlds, but this is different. This requires improvisation, something my people struggle with. We're designed to work together, but you're asking us to work with species who think differently than we do. That's exactly what I'm asking, Marcus confirmed. The Voidborn expect predictability. We're going to give them chaos organized just enough to destroy them. Then we'll adapt, Tessic said. You've taught us that adaptation is a strength, not a weakness. Shiva met him in a meditation chamber made entirely of crystal. Light passed through her body, creating patterns on the walls. My people don't trust outsiders, she said, her voice like chimes. We've remained isolated for good reason. Other species seek to exploit our technology, our resources, our unique properties. I need your people to build weapons in secret, Marcus told her. Devices that manipulate space-time in ways the Voidborn won't anticipate. It's dangerous work. Everything about this plan is dangerous, Shiva observed. But I've watched you these past weeks. You don't seek glory or power. You seek survival. Not just for humans, but for all of us. That's why I convinced my people to participate. Thank you, Marcus said simply. Don't thank me yet, Shiva replied. Wait until we've won, or until we're all dead. Nylora found him late that night in the observation deck. Marcus was staring at the stars, trying not to think about the millions of lives depending on his plan. Can't sleep? Nylora asked, floating beside him. Every time I close my eyes, I see all the ways this could fail, Marcus admitted. My visions show both possibilities, Nylora said softly. In some, we succeed. In others, the Voidborn consume everything. The future is not fixed, Marcus. It's shaped by our choices. No pressure then, Marcus tried to joke. Nylora's form pulsed gently. I need to tell you something. In all my visions of victory, I see the same moment. You, alone in a small ship, flying toward the Voidborn center. And I see you not returning. Marcus felt his stomach drop. You're saying I die? I'm saying the path to victory requires sacrifice. I don't know if it's death, but I see you making a choice that costs you something precious. They stood in silence for a while, watching the stars. On Earth, we have soldiers who volunteer for dangerous missions, Marcus finally said. They know they might not come back. They go anyway because some things are worth the risk. Is this worth it? Nylora asked. Marcus thought about Earth, about humanity's long struggle to reach the stars. He thought about the billions of lives across 5 empires. He thought about the princesses who had gone from mocking him to trusting him with everything. Yes, he said, it's worth it. The next 5 days were chaos. Marcus positioned fleets in patterns that seemed random, but were carefully calculated. He created false fleet signatures that made their forces appear scattered and vulnerable. He evacuated entire systems, making them look abandoned and defenseless. The princesses worked alongside him constantly. Zyreth trained her warriors in new formations. Valdris programmed the generators. Tessic coordinated supply chains. Shiva's people built their secret weapons. Nylora used her visions to help anticipate problems before they occurred. Marcus barely slept. He reviewed plans, answered questions, made adjustments. He met with nervous commanders and reassured frightened crews. He spoke to the combined fleet over communication channels, trying to inspire confidence he didn't fully feel himself. On the morning of the 6th day, the sensors detected them. The entire Voidborn armada, thousands of ships moving in perfect formation, they were heading straight for the Nexus point, where Marcus's apparently disorganized fleet was waiting. Marcus stood on the bridge of the command ship, surrounded by representatives from all 5 empires. The princesses were each with their own forces, ready to execute their parts of the plan. All ships report ready, the communications officer announced. Marcus watched the Voidborn approach on the main display. This was it. Everything humanity had learned about survival, about adaptation, about refusing to surrender, came down to this moment. "Let them come closer," Marcus ordered. "We spring the trap on my command only." The Voidborn detected the fleet. They saw what appeared to be 5 separate groups, each fighting for position, showing no coordination. They saw vulnerability and disorganization. They saw prey. The machine armada accelerated, moving in for what they calculated would be an easy victory. Marcus waited, counting the seconds. Waited until the Voidborn were completely committed. Waited until they were exactly where he needed them. "Now," Marcus said quietly. "Spring the trap." The Nexus point exploded with light and fire. What had appeared to be a disorganized fleet suddenly moved with perfect precision. The fake signatures vanished, revealing the truth. The Voidborn had been baited into a killing field. Shiva's generators activated first. Space itself rippled and twisted. The laws of physics bent in ways that made Marcus's head hurt, just watching the displays. The Voidborn ships slowed, their engines struggling against the altered reality. "Phase 1 complete," Valdris reported from her ship. "Generators holding stable. Field strength at 94%. Zyreth, you're up," Marcus commanded. The Carvon fleet emerged from behind a moon, their weapons already firing. But they didn't charge mindlessly forward. They moved in the patterns Marcus had taught them, striking and retreating, never staying in one place long enough for the Voidborn to target effectively. "They're adapting to our weapons," Zyreth's voice came through. "Just as you predicted." "Good," Marcus said. "Let them think they're learning." Tessic, deploy second wave. The Hive collective ships swarmed from 3 different directions. They moved independently now, each small group making its own decisions. The Voidborn's targeting systems couldn't predict them. These weren't the organized, predictable formations the machines had studied for thousands of years. The Voidborn began to counterattack. Their weapons tore through space, destroying dozens of allied ships. Marcus watched good people die, and each loss felt like a knife in his chest. But he couldn't stop, couldn't hesitate. "Nexari forces, execute flanking pattern Delta," he ordered. Valdris's people had turned off their advanced systems, making their ships appear primitive to Voidborn sensors. When they struck from an unexpected angle, the machines were caught completely by surprise. The attack destroyed a major Voidborn command node. "They're regrouping," the tactical officer warned, forming a defensive sphere around their central nexus. Marcus had expected this. The Voidborn were incredibly intelligent. They learned from each attack, adapted to each strategy. But that was also their weakness. They believed in patterns, incalculable responses. "Crystal Dominion forces, Phase 3, Marcus commanded. Shiva's ships materialized from stealth positions inside the Voidborn formation. Their specially designed weapons fired, and Voidborn ships simply stopped functioning. No explosions, no damage. They just went dark. "What did you do?" the tactical officer asked in amazement. "The crystal weapons create resonance patterns that disrupt machine consciousness," Marcus explained. "But they only work at close range, which is why we needed the Voidborn to cluster together defensively." The battle raged for hours. Ships burned, people died. But slowly, impossibly, the combined fleet was winning. The Voidborn couldn't adapt fast enough to 5 completely different fighting styles being used simultaneously. Every time they countered one approach, another hit them from a different angle. But Marcus knew the real challenge was still coming. "Their central nexus is heavily shielded," Valdris reported. "It's coordinating all their remaining forces. If we destroy it, the Voidborn will lose cohesion. But nothing we have can penetrate those shields." Marcus had known this moment would come. He'd planned for it. In his pocket was a data chip containing the weapon specifications. A prototype that could disrupt the Nexus. But it had to be delivered manually. Someone had to fly directly into the heart of the Voidborn formation. "I'm going in," Marcus announced. "Absolutely not." Zyreth's voice exploded through the comm. "You're the Supreme Commander. You're too valuable. That's exactly why it has to be me," Marcus said calmly. "If I send someone else and they die, I'm the coward who ordered someone to do what I wouldn't do myself. This is my plan. My responsibility." "Marcus, my visions," Nylora began. "I know." Marcus interrupted gently. "You told me. Some things are worth the risk." Before anyone could argue further, Marcus was moving. He ran to the hangar bay, where a small, fast ship was already prepared. He'd made arrangements days ago, knowing this moment might come. As he climbed into the cockpit, his comm came alive with protests from all 5 princesses. He muted them. Not out of disrespect, but because if he listened, he might lose his courage. The small ship launched. Marcus flew through the battlefield, dodging weapons, fire, and debris. His hands were steady on the controls, but his heart was pounding. He thought about Earth, about his family, about everything that had led him to this moment. "All ships, cover the human." Zyreth's voice boomed across all channels. "That's an order from your princess." The combined fleet shifted. Carvan warriors threw their ships between Marcus and incoming fire. Nexari pilots created sensor shadows for him to hide in. Hive ships formed a protective swarm. Ethereals used their abilities to confuse Voidborn targeting systems. Crystal ships cleared a path with their resonance weapons. Marcus dove deeper into the Voidborn formation. Energy blasts missed him by meters. One shot clipped his wing, sending the ship spinning. He fought to regain control, his pilot training from years ago taking over. 200 meters to the Nexus, he said aloud, mostly to himself. 150. The Voidborn Nexus was massive, a dark sphere crackling with energy. Marcus armed the weapon, set it for remote detonation, and prepared to launch it directly into the Nexus's core. Then he saw it. A small gap in the shields, opening and closing in milliseconds. The weapon would never fit through in time, but his ship would. Marcus made his choice in an instant. He didn't arm the remote detonation. He set it for manual trigger, and he aimed his ship directly at the gap. "For Earth," he whispered. "For all of us." He activated his comm one last time. "Princesses, it's been an honor." "Marcus, no!" Multiple voices screamed. His ship shot through the gap. The shields closed behind him. He was inside the Nexus, surrounded by machine intelligence. The weapon armed. Marcus reached for the trigger. The explosion tore the Nexus apart from within. Marcus woke up in a medical bay. His body hurt everywhere. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "Stay still, you stubborn human," Zyreth's voice said. She was sitting beside his bed, looking exhausted. "You've been unconscious for 3 days. The battle?" Marcus croaked. "Won." When the Nexus fell, the Voidborn lost all coordination. We destroyed them completely. Zyreth smiled. Something Marcus had never seen her do. "You did it. You actually did it." Over the next week, Marcus learned what had happened. At the last second, Valdris had calculated his trajectory and managed to project a small shield around his ship. It hadn't been strong enough to save him from injury, but enough to keep him alive. Barely. The 5 princesses visited him constantly. They told him that the Galactic Council had voted unanimously to grant Earth full membership with a permanent seat. Every empire was requesting formal alliances with humanity. "There's something else," Nylora said, when all 5 princesses gathered in his room. "By ancient galactic law, royal heirs may select a bonded advisor who shares their authority, someone who can speak with their voice and help guide their decisions. All 5 of us want to offer you this position," Valdris added. It would make you one of the most powerful individuals in the galaxy." End quote. Marcus listened to their formal offer. The honor was immense, the power staggering. Any human in history would have said yes, immediately. "I'm grateful," Marcus said carefully. "But I have a counter-proposal. Instead of making me powerful, help make Earth strong. Education exchanges, technology sharing, cultural programs, mutual defense pacts that benefit my entire species, not just one person." The princesses looked at each other. Then Xyreth laughed. "Of course you'd say that. This is exactly why we wanted you." "We accept your terms," Tessic buzzed. "Earth will have everything you ask for." 3 months later, Marcus stood before the Galactic Council. The same chamber where he'd been mocked. But everything was different now. He wore the formal robes of Earth's ambassador. The 5 princesses sat on their thrones, but they'd added a 6th seat. "For Earth, we gather today," the Summit Master announced, "to formally welcome humanity into the Galactic Council." The chamber erupted in applause. Species that had laughed at Earth now rose to their feet, showing respect. But the moment that mattered most came after the ceremony. The 5 princesses approached Marcus together. They bowed to him, not in submission, but in respect, as equals recognizing someone who had earned their admiration. "You taught us something important," Xyreth said. "Strength isn't just about power. It's about adaptation, creativity, and never giving up. You showed us that being behind doesn't mean being inferior," Valdris added. "Sometimes a fresh perspective sees solutions others miss." "You proved that unity is stronger than pride," Tessic buzzed. "That isolation makes us weak, not strong," Shiva chimed softly. "And that the future belongs not to those who are strongest," Nylora finished, "but to those who refuse to surrender." Marcus looked at these 5 incredible leaders who had gone from mocking Earth to becoming humanity's closest allies. He thought about how far he'd come, how far humanity had come. "The future doesn't belong to one human," Marcus said with a smile. "It belongs to all of us, working together." And in that moment, watching species from across the galaxy celebrating their victory and their new unity, Marcus knew that Earth had finally found its place among the stars, not through conquest or superior technology, but through the most human quality of all: the stubborn refusal to quit, even when everyone said you should. The end.